A very good afternoon to all. I'm Indrakshi Datta. I, on behalf of Department of Mathematics, Jesus and Mary College, is here to extend a very warm welcome to all those who have joined us today for the webinar. The topic of today's webinar is how to stay cyber safe in COVID-19 times. First of all, I'd like to welcome our esteemed speaker, Mr. Anup Deb, who has taken time from his busy schedule to share his expertise with us. A very warm welcome to you, sir. We are honored to have you here with us today. I will now request our principal, Sister Rosalie, to initiate the proceedings of today's webinar by welcoming our guests and participants and invoking Almighty with a short prayer. I'll take this opportunity to thank Sister Rosalie and the entire webinar team for encouraging us and helping us organize today's webinar. Sister Rosalie, and I'll also request the participants to keep their audio and video muted and use the chat box for queries only. Sister Rosalie.
A very good morning. I'm happy to welcome the staff, students, and all the participants to this webinar organized by the IQAC in collaboration with the Departments of Mathematics, Jesus and Mary College, on the topic, how to stay cyber-free, safe in COVID-19 times. We are privileged to have with us Mr. Anup Kanti Deb to speak on this important subject. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invitation and spending your valuable time with us. I am sure all of us will benefit through this interaction. The cybercrime is being reported time and again in our country. It is increasing all the more in these days of lockdown. The pandemic has pushed technology into almost every aspect of our life. Therefore, it is important to remain safe. We use social media comfortably, not thinking of the dangers awaiting us. It is important for us to know how to use these technologies safely. We have been reminded every day, many times, how to be safe from coronavirus. But we use the technology without learning how to keep ourselves safe from the possible abuse and misuse of this social media. I thank the Department of Mathematics for organizing this webinar on this important topic. Before we begin, let us invoke God's blessings on each one of us. May God fill us with His wisdom, help us to make right decisions, choices in life, so that we live a meaningful life, contribute to build a just and humane society, that we may respect the dignity of every person and make this earth a beautiful place for everyone. Amen. I congratulate and thank the Department of Mathematics for taking time to organize this webinar. Dr. Indrakshi Datta, Dr. Anu Saxena, Dr. Alka Marwa, and everyone for doing all the necessary arrangements for conducting this seminar. Dr. Sudhi Tohan for moderating this session. Thank you everyone from the Department of Mathematics. I also thank Dr. Amida Motwani, Dr. Renu Gupta, Dr. Ishita, Dr. Naveen, Ms. Vrinta, Ms. Megha, Dr. Shikha from Maths Department, and everyone for helping us to organize this webinar successfully. Wish you all the best and God bless you.
Indrakshi ma'am, you are on mute.
Indrakshi, please unmute yourself.
Ma'am, I think she can't hear us. So,
Shruti, will you take over?
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Shruti Tohan, Assistant Professor, Department of Mathematics, Jesus and Mary College. It is a privilege to introduce our esteemed guest for today, Mr. Anup Kanti Deb. Mr. Deb is the Director for Palo Alto Networks and leads the managed detection response practice across the Asia Pacific and Japan region. He comes with a rich background of working in the information technology and cybersecurity industry, having specialized in the area of cybersecurity, risk and compliance domain. He is also a subject matter expert in incident response. Mr. Deb has worked in many information technology companies, including IBM, HP, France Telecom, Wipro, HCL, and a few more. With over 2 decades of industry experience, he has been an eminent speaker at industry events and conferences across the region. An active writer, blogger, his writings and research papers have been regularly published in journals of repute. We welcome you, sir, and request you to enlighten us on the subject, how to be cyber safe in COVID-19 times. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Shruti. And first of all, I wanted to thank the management of Jesus and Mary, and special thanks to Sister. I also wanted to acknowledge and thank Professor Indrakshi Datta for giving me an opportunity to speak. I'm actually honored and privileged today to be in midst of all of you. Although we are all in a webinar session, right? We are working in a modern era of where we are collaborating to virtually, right? And this is going to be the future where we have got to collaborate virtually. Now, I want to share my screen, and I'll just take a second as I prepare myself. So I'm living in Singapore. I'm addressing all of you from Singapore. Look, the world has become a global village, isn't it? I don't have to fly to Delhi and speak. And I've been living here for the last more than a decade now, and actually I come with that 2 decades of experience. Thank you for being so kind, sharing my details over the last 20 years of what I have done. My mobile number, my email address are all with you all. You all can get in touch with me anytime. So as I start, before I start, actually, when Professor Indrakshi approached me and the Department of Mathematics approached me for this webinar, I started thinking, okay, now let's looking at the topic, the subject of our presentation today. I thought, let me set certain objectives, right? What is the objective? As a student, you are the future of our society, our country, and for the world today, right? And cybersecurity awareness is one of the key important aspects of the way we handle technology, right? So my first objective was to reinforce the importance of cybersecurity awareness. And most importantly, cybersecurity is all about risk, how you measure risk, how do you identify risk. And then once you can identify and measure risk, you have options to mitigate that risk, right? And so in an evolving threat landscape, that was my first objective. The second objective was to ensure that I have that I brief you on on the different malicious actors that are motivated to get into hacking, right? And adversaries who are criminals or nation states who attack countries, right? So those are the what is the motivation behind it, right? So this is the second topic that I wanted to touch upon, so that the objectives are set. The third objective was to also give you an insight of what are the methods that malicious actors are choosing today. With so much amount of technology coming in, the bad actors today, the adversaries, are becoming very smart. They are using artificial intelligence. They are using all of technologies to be able to penetrate into our systems and in a way our lives, right? And the fourth objective was to touch upon what are the simple ways as students we can embrace that can help us to reduce risk, given the landscape that we are all in, right? The COVID-19 related attacks that are there. I'm going to share some of them. So this is where I wanted to set that context and some of the objectives. So, and while I was preparing yesterday the slides, I was thinking, what should I start with? And I started looking at your college, and I'm so privileged that I'm speaking to such a college which has a history of so much amount of importance and the contribution that you have done for the college has done for the country. And when I was looking at it, I thought that this slide should give you a set of motivation, the reason for which, as you look at it, it is an opportunity that you can look at it, right? So one is...
Sir, sorry to interrupt, but your presentation is not visible to us.
Okay. Is it visible now? Let me just check once more. I did the present entire screen. Okay. Is it visible?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
I'm very sorry. I think somehow it did not share. But anyway, I'm just in my first or second slide. This is the set of objectives that I've set, as I said. And then, so while I was preparing this presentation, I thought, let me look at your college. And then I thought, these are some of the statistical data that I've gotten from my research, and some of them should be a motivation for all of you. Yeah, the one being the first in the left hand side, you could see one of a reputed organization which has come in with saying that there will be 3.5 million cybersecurity jobs in 2021. In an era that we are in today, where we are so much amount of getting in informations which are so depressing, isn't it? Job cuts, somebody has a COVID infection, we cannot go out. And here is an opportunity for you that if you embrace cybersecurity as a career, as your future, and it doesn't matter whether you are an engineer or a science student or from the Department of Mathematics, or you are a literature student or a student of history, does not matter. What you need is, if you want to come into cybersecurity industry, you will need to have a few basic qualities, and this qualities of a mind which has which is good in terms of investigations, a mind which is good in terms of analytics, a mind which has the power to communicate well with an audience, with your peers, with your customers. And if you have those skill sets, you already have a future, right? Communication, collaboration, observation skills are very important. And if you think any of you who wants to get into this career, you can get into it. We are embracing women to come in. I mean, this is another slide is also a reflection of the gender equality, and that's where we want we would like to see young careers, young females who want to come and join cybersecurity as a career, right? And this data should give you the motivation, right? And could be an alternative career for you, right? So this data actually shows that only at the moment we have only 11% of the total the community itself which are women. The second point is that I was while I was going through yesterday while trying to build this presentation, I was myself surprised that 78% of the young women are actually opting out from a career of cybersecurity, and that's what I wanted to share with you, right? And on the right hand side, you will see some of the motivations, right? And one of the motivation is that there is 0% employment in cybersecurity from 2011. That is indeed, I would say, very encouraging for all of us, right? The second is, that I want to touch upon is that a CISO's salary, which is Chief Information Security Officer, which stands for CISO, right? It is almost $1 million US dollar, which translates to around 7.5 crore Indian rupees. That would also translate to almost 60 lakh rupees of monthly salary. Can you imagine what is the kind of demand that we have in this industry, right? So I would encourage, and so my starting slide was to ensure that you all are motivated enough to look at it as a probable career. It doesn't need that everybody has to join cybersecurity. It could be a probable career for some of you, right? So the second thing that I want to touch upon before I get into COVID-19 and the difficult times and what is the impact of cyber crimes, it is very important for us to understand cyber risk. And as I was trying to prepare this presentation, I was thinking, how can I articulate risk, cyber risk? And this is a perfect way to possibly amplify the value of cyber risk. I mean, it is a combination of threat and vulnerability, right? What does a threat mean? A threat is basically an incident, any incident that has a potential to harm a system. And a vulnerability is a known weakness, right, within an asset that hackers could exploit. Now, I can give you a very simple example. You have a house, you have a door, right? And if you leave your door open, so there is a threat that someone can get into your house. And a vulnerability could be defined as similar door, but you don't have a lock. And so there is a weakness there. And a hacker would look at that and therefore there is a risk, right? This is how we actually define risk from in context of cyber engagement. On the right-hand side that you see is, again, a very interesting chart which actually talks about how do you measure risk. That is important, right? Because in cybersecurity, it's all about risk. It is about risk appetite. It is about risk tolerance. I'm not going to go into those technologies, but it is about risk tolerance. And so it's very important and imperative for all of us to look at how you measure risk. This is what we do in our day-to-day life. And so this chart is a reflection where the x-axis talks about the likelihood or occurrence. If I may say so, likelihood is kind of probability, right? It's the probability for an incident or a new incident to happen. And the Y chart is basically the impact of that risk. So if you have a high probability, a high likelihood, and a high impact, then your risk is very, very high. If you have low impact, low probability, then your risk is low. Risk is never zero in cybersecurity. Risk is either low, risk is either medium, probable, or high, right? Medium, low, or high. So that, in essence, is what is the definition of cyber risk, right? And if you get this risk concept well, your other charts, my other presentations will become very easy for you to understand. So here is something that I wanted to talk about, right? So one of the changes, the changing landscape driving security, right? And this is important because there is a retrospective last 20 years. There has been a paradigm shift in the way we have adopted technology. So, 20 years back, we would not have thought of something like a social, and sister touch upon, right? Our social network, right? How do we interact? For example, we never had something called an Instagram or a Facebook or a Twitter or a LinkedIn. And now your modern and the new generation of students who are coming up, this generation, you talk about snapshot and so on and so forth. There's Snapchat, right? So those are things that are getting imbibed in our lives, and we have got to accept it. We have got to embrace it. And so is in other aspects as well, not only social, but also from a technology standpoint, where computing has moved from physical computing to virtual computing. We were talking about virtualization, and to an era that we are talking about cloud computing. And cloud itself has become so complex that we now talk about not only private cloud, but a public cloud, but we all talk about a combination of private, public, as well as on-premise, so on hybrid cloud environment. And that changes. There is a lot of complexity that happens because your data moves around there. So as I said, once you're opening up, your threat landscape is also, corresponding threat landscapes are also evolving. So as we are innovating in terms of the technology, and there will be more technology which is going to come in, because you'll talk about IoT in the next future. You're going to see driverless car. There will see IoT devices, sensors, so sensor engagements which happen, and we will have to embrace them. And so as we embrace them, from a positive side of it, there is this threat, because you are opening up this landscape of threats, right? So this slide is a representation of a program must keep pace with the evolving threat landscape in order to prevent, detect, and respond to security breaches. Okay, and this I got this slide from Comcast. Comcast is one of the service providers in the US, one of the largest service provider, and their data is very, very valuable and authentic. The next that I wanted to share is okay. So why is this happening, right? This is also a context. I wanted to set this because of this evolving landscape. Why is it so that technologies are coming in, and in which are the areas? Now, the trends and drivers is that in this industry, we are calling this to be a digital transformation era, an era where there has been a tremendous amount of innovation and transformation which is happening. On one aspect of it is social. And therefore, you see so much amount of social networking side, because you are able to collaborate, right? Even we were not aware of Google Meet, and we were not accustomed. But in the last 3-4 years, Zoom and so much, Microsoft Teams, so many amount of collaboration tools have come in, and we have got to live with it. That somebody is going to use Zoom, somebody is going to use Google Meet, right? And we have got to adapt to this new culture. So this change of adoptions is driving this digital transformation from a perspective of social, and from a perspective of the mobility as well, right? How much we have embraced mobile phones, right? And mobile phones are becoming smarter day by day. Right, everything. Your mobile phone is not a phone alone; it is a computer. An IoT, a thermostat is a computer. A refrigerator will become a computer. So your air conditioner will become a computer, and therefore it will open up vulnerabilities. It will open up threats. right? So social mobility analytics, the ability uh, to be able to do some form of a data crunch, right, from the data into information, right? So that is something that will happen. It's happening all over, right? So so that you can understand patterns, right, from data. For example, I'll take a simple example. Now, if someone is using an Instagram, and I know what is your likes and what is your dislikes, I can build a pattern, and then I can understand your behavior. I can understand your interest. I can understand your likes and dislikes. For example, if I read a lot of science and fiction and I upload those documents into my LinkedIn or my Twitter or my Facebook account, so people from outside can know a bit of me, that how am I as a person, what is my interests and dislikes, right? And similarly, it is cloud. Cloud is going to be a part of our lives, right? So now that you use emails, either it is in the platform, whether it is a Microsoft platform or a Google platform. You use this presentation that I'm using today. It is in a Google platform that I'm using this platform, right? So it's where it is hosted in a cloud, whether it is in a public cloud or a private cloud or a hybrid cloud. And therefore there is a possibility that somebody can infringe and get my data out of it. So I've got to protect it, right? So cloud, social mobility analytics are driving this digital transformation across the globe, and we have got to be aware, and we have got to embrace those changes, right? So my next slide is all about of the World Economic Forum, and I wanted to touch upon it, and then we'll set this context of my presentation, right? So the World Economic Forum is basically an international organization which started off in Switzerland, in Geneva, in 1971. So Google it, and this is important for you, right? And they work, they bring in, they collaborate, bring in the academia, the institutions, the industry, the political organizations, the government, all across into a forum, and they provide you the direction, the roadmap, and they share with you the risk that can derail us, and also shows us a way that we can overcome those kind of risks, right? And this is an example of the most likely fallout for the world post the COVID-19 that has already disrupted us, right? So it maps the risk outlook primarily. It is mapping and the implications that are there, right? But World Economic Forum actually works in 5 key domains. One is economic, second is social, the third is technology, the fourth is geopolitical and environment. And this is what the World Economic Forum does. You must have heard of Davos meet, which happens, and these are actually hosted by World Economic Forum, wherein the industry all gets together, the political parties get together, the government gets together, and they brainstorm, and they provide direction, and they provide reports. So one of the report that came out of the World Economic Forum is, and I've just picked up this as a global risk report. Now you will understand we define what is risk, right? Risk is how do we measure risk? How do we define risk? What do we measure risk? Now this in the right hand chart is actually a reflection of how we are measuring risk. Right? This is the 2020 Global Risk Report, which is from the World Economic Forum. If you go to their website, you will get their details as well. But few things that I wanted to touch upon here. One is look at cyber attacks. Cyber attacks stands which is likelihood is high, and the impact can be very high. And although my subject for today is not about climate actions, but look at climate actions, and you are the future of the society, of our country, of the world. As we talk about, and as Sister touched upon in the prayers of how we need to look at our Mother Nature, and climate is one of the big points. Maybe my submission to the management of the institute should be that you should look at topics around natural disasters, biodiversity loss, climatic actions, which are going to impact us. And you students, you being the future, you will also have to protect the Mother Earth as well. Similarly, you look at this report actually came out early January, so it also rated infectious disease. The likelihood, COVID-19 doesn't happen every year, every month, right? Every possible quarter. It happens once, and it happens, and the impact can be very high, right? So here, the likelihood of an infectious disease like COVID-19, likelihood is less, but the impact can be very high. I would have rated it much higher, although. Cyber attacks, on the other hand, the likelihood is also high, impacts are also very high. We hear cyber attacks every day. Okay. My next slide is about, now that I have set up context, and now that I have given you a background of the evolving threat landscape, the impact of risk, the measurement of risk, how do we define the risk. Now we'll talk about what cyber awareness is, right? And that is my first objective that I set. And that's and these are some of the bullet points. I'm not going to read through each of the points, but one thing very important is that technology will not be a solution to everything of your problems, right? You have got to have a very strong mind, and you have got to use common sense to ensure that you can protect yourself, right? And as you bring in more technology in your lives, the threats are going to be more, right? And and the second point also talks about attackers go where security is weakest. So as you know, it is all about mitigating risk. Cyber security is about mitigating risk. You cannot make it zero. You can minimize it. So look out for the vulnerabilities that you have in the system. I can give you one example. You all are using laptops, and maybe you are using a Windows operating system or Apple Mac OS system. But if your operating system is not patched or upgraded and it is not recent, there is every possibility that it opens up possibility perhaps an intruder can get into your system and steal your data without even you knowing about it. Okay, because data, and the third point really talks about data is the new oil, right? That's a good thing, and that's a bad thing as well, right? That's a good thing because you can crunch that data, you can do lot of analytics within the data. Data becomes so critical, and because I know your mindset, I know you when I look at your data. When I get your data, I can know about you, right? And I can then that data becomes a value for me. It becomes an asset for me. And why will you share your own private data? Your data is your asset, right? You want to share with whoever you want to, right? Nobody has a right to steal it. And therefore, it is essential to reducing cybersecurity risk, right? And awareness is not only for employees or organizations that we work in. Cybersecurity awareness is always run as a quarterly kind of exercise within any organizations, or if not quarterly, at least half yearly, as an awareness program, right? And think about it, right? You have to be, if before a fire happens, you do fire drills, right? So awareness are important things, and so you get prepared. So similarly, it is also for employees, for business owners, for individuals, right? And remember that many tips that keep you safe at work will keep you safe at home as well, right? Because you carry your laptop back home, and in an environment that we are in today, that data, everything is in your laptop, in your mobile phone, and therefore, as you work, come back home, you also ensure that you keep yourself safe at home, right? So my next slide is about what people would be thinking. And when I was building this presentation, I started thinking as a student. So my audience today is you, right? And as students, when I was a student, I used to think that what do I have except for my education? I'm learning, and that's about it. I do not have any assets. But if you are thinking that way, you are completely wrong. You are exactly what an attacker wants. You have everything you need. You have your data with you, right? And some of the data could be, in today's world, could be credit card, financial data. You may not have a credit card, but you may have a credit card, but you will have an online, you will have a banking account, and you don't want to share the data. Why will you share your data? That is private to you. Or your medical data, prescription, insurance, and that leads to identity fraud, right? So prescriptions are so important today. For example, if I know your blood group, I can create a catastrophic impact on you. I know your medical history. I can hack and create a lot of problem for you. So we have got to be very careful, right, with our data, and it is your data, as I said, is the new oil, and data therefore is more valuable than financial data. And what are the methods that attacker or an intruder is utilizing today? And some of them are something like crypto mining, right? And crypto mining is basically it is a malware, right? It is a malware which basically the most common form of crypto mining is actually a malware, right? And it is basically a clandestine software which can run within your mobile devices or your network or your laptop, and you are not aware of it. So if you are not aware of it, there is someone who has ingested a malware and is monitoring you, what you are doing, right? So crypto mining has become a form of an intrusion, and then you must have heard of ransomware, right? Ransomware, jump point, or things like advertising. I will trap you by advertising. Now I can say that COVID-19, for COVID-19, I have developed certain medicines that will help you to ensure that you will be COVID free forever, and that you like it. So you will click, and then I will start understanding you. I may get a full control over your system as well, right? So we do not have to fall prey. We need to be assured whether what we are doing is right in a virtual world that we live in, right? So there are people who is sending spam mail, and therefore you've got to recover, reset accounts. You have to ensure that you have ways that you protect your devices. Right? So my next slide is about So what is zero trust? So this is something that that has become very important, a buzzword in the industry in cybersecurity, where actually I do not trust you. The basis of building a network it is basically an initiative to help prevent successful data breaches, right? By eliminating the concept of trust across your network, across your endpoints and cloud. And the classic example of zero trust policy is that when you get into do an online transaction with your bank, right? You not only use your username and your password, but once you do that, the bank then still do not trust you. They will give you an authentication, a multi-factor authentication with an OTP saying that, yes, this is what you are transacting. So there are different levels or segments. We call it micro segmentation, but I'm not getting into technical aspect of it, right? But the premise that, I do not trust you is in any form. And therefore, the way that I handle you, whether it is in the network side of it, endpoints, or in the cloud, that is how people are building it. And zero trust actually was implemented. This philosophy of zero trust came in from one of a very reputed organization called Forrester Research. Some of you in future may be working in Forrester Research. So they came out with it in 2010 with that intent that don't trust what happens before or after, right? And Google implemented it. Google as an organization implemented it in 2010. and it became very popular. And now banks, large enterprises are adopting, or government is adopting technologies like zero trust, right? So my next slide is about some of the definitions, and these are some of the words that you will be hearing from a lot of your what do you call from your transactions with your customers, or with people that you talk to, people who talk about social engineering. Right? These are the ways that you manipulate via email, text message, phone calls. These are basically techniques, and procedures by virtue of which you are able to get an entry into an individual or an organization. So social engineering is something that we have to be careful. The other aspect is very popular, which is phishing, right? Which is basically an email form of social engineering, which comes with certain links, unknown links. So if you tap on the link, you will see, let's say email can come from, and I can give you one example which is pretty relevant also. The World Health Organization does a lot of work around COVID-19, and so the criminals or attackers have found out a way to say that, okay, I create a URL which is based on World Health Organization, and let me send a mail. And if you are the victim, I'm sending you the victim. As a victim, I've targeted you, and therefore I send you the mail from World Health Organization, and you have opened that mail. But actually, you have not opened a mail which is from the World Health Organization. You have opened up, you have got into a trap, right? And therefore, then they will ask you that, okay, now that if you have opened it up, why don't you give me the details? Then we will provide you possibly something which is free, and you will be trapped in doing so, right? So be careful that you don't get into a phishing attack. Or SMSing is also a similar kind of thing, which is phishing, but basically based on SMS, right? And DDoS attacks. And DDoS is the full form of DDoS is basically distributed denial of services. So I'm still not going into the technology component of it, but it is a form of an online attack. And I can give you an example where, let's say, your college web server. If I have to go to your web server, your college server website, right? And if I can flood in with a lot of people, or I create an environment by virtue of which I just get into your site, your server can be down. It's like I'm creating a traffic jam, right? Once your traffic is jammed, it's a bottleneck, and it's completely down. So DDoS is also a form of an online attack that floods websites and other online services with malicious traffic. Imagine if I have to do it with Amazon. Its entire business is based on online portal, right? So if I have to flood the Amazon website and stop the transaction, if it is flooded with so much amount of people, we call it zombies or botnets. But again, I'm not getting into that. But those are things which will have that blocks and floods it, and your website gets down. Okay, and I create an attack. I get an opportunity to attack. So so there are malicious actors and their motivations, right? So the motivations are, criminals are. We know criminals have a mindset. They operate as individuals or gangs, and primarily interested in identity theft, right? Financial fraud, ransomware attacks. They'll try to blackmail you with some by getting your data, right? The second is very interesting, which is nation states. Now nations are fighting against the other, and here I can tell you COVID-19 is also an area that nation states are trying to get IP, the intellectual property data of the research that a nation would be doing, right? For our country, like India, we are doing a lot of research around COVID-19, right? And we are building up solutions. We are finding out solutions. If I can take it away, I can steal it away. This IP I can steal it away. A nation can steal it away. Then the entire effort that you have done is wasted, right? So I create a damage for you. And there are examples. COVID-19 is one of them, but I can recall of an recent attack, not a recent attack, but in 2015, within Ukraine, there was an attack where Russia had attacked Ukraine in 2015 on a power plant, and 30 substations were completely off. The entire day, around 230,000 population, they did not have any electricity. So can you imagine? I can completely create and havoc in an environment like that, right? So Russian attacked the Ukrainian power station. You can Google and find it out. These are all available in the net, in the web. And similarly, you know, we also heard of the election in the U.S., right, where the Democrats and the Russians had helped the Republicans, right? So Donald Trump's. And there has been investigation going on to what extent, but there is definitely an evidence of an attack there as well. So nation states attacks are pretty common, and you have got to be careful. As we speak today, there's an attack going on in Australia. I read a couple of days back, the Prime Minister of Australia, Scott Morrison, had admitted the fact that their intellectual properties are getting compromised. And so there are thrill seekers as well, you know. There are people who are thrill seekers, individuals who wish to further, you know, their knowledge or uncertainty and doubt, and they try profiting as well, right? So those are actors, and there are activists, right, who has motivations to commit cybercrime. So types of COVID-19 related cyber attacks that we look at, as I talked about, phishing, malicious websites, malicious apps, DDoS, disinformation. So the use of email and text messages is primarily the most popular method that you know, attackers or adversaries are using today with the purpose to steal information or install ransomware within your network, right? Malicious apps, their attackers have created fake COVID-19 apps, as I said, World Health Organization. So you will go and get trapped saying that this is authentic, it comes from World Health Organization, but it is not so. So those are the means that people are using. So my next aspect is, my slide is about, you know, this really in essence drives the messaging, the threats, the volume of threats that we have seen over the Q1 of 2020, which is January, February, March. A lot of data are coming in as of now. We are still experiencing it, okay? But whatever little I could research over one couple of hours time yesterday, and this is from one of our large research organization, and Trend Micro is one of the large company as well, a very reputed company, which has come up with the extent of the COVID-19 related threats. There are 907,000 total spam messages, 37,000 detected malware related to COVID-19. You know, and you know, the most impacted country today is United States of America. Even India, as we speak, I saw yesterday to be 4 million. In fact, yesterday I heard that 15,000 people got infected. So can you imagine how it is, affecting us as individuals, right? So, so this is a simple way. I mean, we are not going into too much of technology. There are various ways of combating attackers, but that is in future as you move and build this. If you think cybersecurity is your career, you will learn how to utilize technology to combat threats, right? So, but some of the very essential ways, simple ways that we do is be careful. Do not click on links or open up attachments in emails and text. Stay calm. Social engineering. Remember, social engineering often preys on our fear and anxiety, right? So if you are doing any financial transactions or involved in approving of, you're not, but if you are doing some transactions, confirm the transaction by phone, video, chat, or secure instant messaging, right? So only visit trusted site of COVID-19. We'll see a lot of COVID-19 sites coming up, and be careful. Be careful in installing new apps. That's also one thing for teenagers and students. They are deploying apps wherever they can, right? So, for example, there are so many collaboration tools that has come in. My wife was telling me, why don't you download House? What is that called? I don't know, House Party. So I said, what is this? Then and then there are cases. Now you see Zoom. What happened with Zoom? The entire video conferences and meetings could be where people, the attackers could get that data, get that information, right? And so now Zoom CEO has come up with the so-called what do you call, encrypted way of ensuring that your data is protected. So as of now, I can say we can, as I said, risk is never zero, right? It's never zero. They have encrypted it. Risk is still there because attackers will still find out ways to penetrate. Like this meeting that we are having today, as of now, Google has put in all efforts to ensure that the Google is encrypted and it is safe, but you never know, right? So we have got to be careful. Last couple of slides before I end. I know I'm just completed almost 40 minutes. So I wanted to touch upon how you can help yourself. The first step is to staying safe online, is to remember that you are in control of your technology, right? Stay calm, question unusually email, question yourself with text that comes in. Don't just go and close your eyes and click any button, right? So that's not the way. If you're receiving an unusual COVID-19 related email, please forward them. There are the Indian government, or in Singapore itself, the Ministry of Manpower is helping all of us, right? And in India, I just wanted to show you one of the sites which the Ministry of Home Affairs has come. There's the National Cybercrime Reporting Portal. So you can see every day there is a tweet coming in. Secure your wireless access points with a strong password. Hackers usually can scan for open access point. Now you get a wireless point, you get a Wi-Fi free, and you just try to get an entry. Actually, I can hack your system. Yeah. So you have got to be careful. All I'm saying that use your technology, but use it in a very judicious way. Use your prudence in order to your judgment whether you're safe or not. And then law enforcement is there to help you. I've worked with the Ministry of Home Affairs very closely. A lot of things that I cannot even share, but yes, it gives you a reassurance that you are there is somewhere you can there is a helpline, right? You can call for help. The government of India is here to help you. And this is something which is very interesting as well. Report woman child related crime. So report and track, you can do that, right? So if you want to contact them, there are all states are headed by a very senior police official, right? Headed by the rank of IGPs and SPs and DIG. My father has himself been a police officer, so I know how important the rules are. So this is the onus and responsibilities on a IGP, on a DIGP. So that is a big assurance for all of us, right? Every state. Now let's go to Delhi. Delhi also has got a cell, right? A cyber cell to help you, to protect you, right? So yeah, so this is again my kind of an concluding couple of slides. So this is from Interpol. Be vigilant, be skeptical, and be safe, right? And what are the things that you're going to look at? Backup online and offline files regularly. Few simple things. This is nothing about technology at all. You have to back it up, right? Strengthen your home network, right? You have a Wi-Fi, but you ensure that that is protected. Use strong passwords, and this is something what I wanted to add. It's very easy, most of the time. In fact, I was one of them as well in my initial days when we were starting off with IQAC as a collaboration tool back in the 90s. And we had and we used to have passwords, and most of us, it's not uncommon to have your name and your date of birth as your password, or your mother's name or your father's name and your date of birth, or something like that, or a pet's name and the data and something like that, right? Easy password. The hackers will be once they get a little bit of data, they will be they can easily hack those passwords. So be vigilant. The other thing is now, what is the prescription? What kind of password do you have? So have it a long sentence, and this is something like the cybersecurity awareness. Let's say if I say my first vehicle was a Maruti 800, okay, that can be my password, and I can guarantee you it is difficult to crack that password. Okay, of course this is not my password, but I'm just giving an example. And you can then have use some of this and or zero as O, O as zero, something like that, right? So at the rate, you can all use those kind of signatures that helps you. Manage your social media profiles properly. This is something that I wanted to tell all of you. You see, your next recruitments are also going to be like that. When I recruit a person within my organization, in today's world, however good you are in academics, however good you can be as a person, I find you in your Instagram. I ask my HR to look at you in Instagram, in Twitter, in any of the virtual world that you are enrolled. And then I try to find out what you are as a person. I know you better. And then, do you then fit into my organizations? So be very careful when you're using social media. And check your privacy security settings. And most of the time, change your password as well. Right? And delete suspicious emails or attachments. Don't keep it in your system. So to summarize, there are wide varieties of attackers with different motivation using COVID-19. So knowing how to spot attacks and reacting calmly is important, right? Reporting suspicious emails. If you have suspicious email, you can go to the cybercrime portal and cybercrime of Agency of India and report it. Remember, social engineering works by preying on emotions. Stay calm and think before you click. Okay. And finally, as I end my presentation, that's my last slide. I wanted to just touch upon the story of human mind. I mean, it's all about observation, right? It's all about human mind and how alert you are. So I wanted to tell you of a story of a Korean war which happened in 1950 to 1953, where the Koreans were absolutely, from a technology point of view, they were much more advanced than the Americans. And the Koreans were using M15 MiGs, which were supported by the Soviet Union at that point of time, and America was actually using an inferior F-86 kind of for their air-to-air missile fights, right? But this gentleman in the right-hand side that you see is the person name is John Boyd. John Boyd, go and find out. We use this principle of on the left-hand side that you see, observe, orient, decide, and act, and that can help you in your day-to-day lives. How you observe, how you orient, how you decide, and then what you act, right? So Boyd's OODA loop is something that in modern warfare is being used. It's very popular, where you observe, orient, decide, and act. And Boyd actually found out that in the dogfights, the Americans won over the Koreans primarily because of their ability to observe faster, orient much more faster than the technology, superior technologies that the Koreans were using. They could decide faster, and then they could act faster, and they won that war. So with that, I will conclude my presentation, and I'm open for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. It was a very interesting and informative session. Cybersecurity, as we all know, is a topic of a lot of importance to all of us, since we are using online apps for everything, especially in COVID-19 times when we're all locked in our homes and we are trying not to move out and doing every transaction online. So this topic holds a lot of importance. And it is scary also that, the way you explained us that how careful we should be and how attackers can easily get into our accounts and take away our data. So, not wasting any further time, and I'll just move on to the question and answer session. We have a few questions. The first question, so there are a few concerns about the Zoom app, but you've already talked about it that they're trying to tighten up or make more stringent steps to tighten up their security. So I'll move on to the next question, which says that so you've talked about crypto mining and malwares as well. The question is that what softwares can we install on our laptop, desktop, mobiles to protect the device from unwanted softwares that get installed on their own on our devices? So,
Also, that's a great question. In cybersecurity, something we do, there is a framework called prevention, detection, and response. So how you prevent? The first thing that we do is prevent. Now, in a laptop, for this question to be asked is that you will have some form of an antivirus. Antivirus allows you to check the malwares which are already been detected. So they will check, and then if there is something which comes in, it will automatically protect yourself. But that's not enough, because as I said, adversaries are smarter than a lot of us, right? So they are using artificial intelligence to still penetrate. And then you need advanced technologies like a detection tool. And that's my subject, basically, endpoint detection response. So how you then respond to it. And you can use automation and some form of technology that can help you. But if, as an individual, the first thing that you need to do is to protect yourself with having the right antivirus, okay, updated antivirus. Just don't go and compromise saying that I've just bought a laptop and I don't need to have, because there is some cost to it. Remember, you have a technology, you have got to protect. Inherently, when softwares are developed, inherently when you build up a technology, you do not keep security in the top of your mind, because that's not the objective that you are building that software. You're building a software. For example, when Facebook built that software, they build it with an objective in mind, that how can we create a collaborative tool? How can we engage in collaboration, right? They did not think that my objective is security first, and therefore they have left a gap, and that gap is where people come in to penetrate, right? So this is where technology helps, and this is where your human mind is also important, right? You got to see that your operating system is updated. You got to see that you have an antivirus in place, and the hygiene. Simple thing is the hygiene. The hygienes of cybersecurity is being taken care of. But yet we will still have what do you call, attacks happening. Don't think that attacks are not going to happen. It will continue to happen. We will still be threatened. So we've got to be aware.
thank you, sir. The next question is, it says that big companies like Xiaomi, Uber, or even our own government authenticated information of Aadhaar or CSC have also had immense data breach incidents. How do we practice zero trust policy in such cases of big brands?
See, as I said, the technology landscape is evolving, right? These are the challenges we create. We don't have an answer that we say yes or no, or say that this is a very ready-made answer. We don't have it. It is a complex world that we are living in, and therefore we are innovating. Now, what the banks are doing is trying to building up their prevention capability, detection capability, or responding capability within their network. So there is a network, there is mobility, there is what do you call IoT devices. All that needs to be protected, right? An ATM card itself, when you punch in your ATM card, it gets hacked, right, nowadays. So you're going to protect the IoT devices as well. And so it is. I don't have an easy answer to it. It is all that we can do is build our technology. We have got to be one up over the adversary, and adversary tries to be one up over us, and therefore this dichotomy of how we can keep ourselves at peace with what do you call, with the adversaries.
Thank you, sir. So the next question is that how often are cybersecurity incident response plans tested by an organization?
Oh, a very good question. That's my subject actually. Where as I touched upon something called, you do fire drill before your fire happens. Incident response is something like that. If you do not prepare yourself, you will not be able to what do you call to respond to it, right? And now that we have incident response, we are also using technology. What we are doing, we are automating and orchestrating. Or we are using automation that drives efficiency. We are using orchestration that gives us the agility and the flexibility to protect ourselves. Now, because we are protecting the network, we are protecting our cloud, we are protecting our endpoints, right? And therefore, there are certain characteristics that we observe. Once we see a characteristic, there are threat information feeds which comes in, and then we are able to take actions on it. But that's a very big subject itself. It is as you progress, and if you pursue a career in cybersecurity, we'll be happy to share, and you'll be happy to learn as well. Those are things which are important. But incident response is extremely critical. How fast we respond is important, right? And I can tell you a number of cases like Sony breach. Have you heard of it? The Koreans had taken all their, the North Korean attack on the Sony as a company, and the reason being is that the ability to respond to that attack. They knew that attack was happening. They knew that there was lateral movement in terms of data exfiltration, yet Sony could not prevent itself. And so the challenge is how fast and how agile are you in order to respond. And that is all about incident response.
Thank you, sir. So the next question is actually a personal question from a student, and I think a lot of students might be facing such problems. It is actually related to invasion of privacy without consent. So it says that the student says that one of her classmates clubbed two of their photos together, made a collage, and opened an Instagram account by giving it a title couples. So in this case, what can she do?
I didn't get you. I didn't get your question. Can you repeat it?
So there is a student who's asked this question, and she says that one of her classmates clubbed few of their photos together, made a collage, and opened an Instagram account by giving it a title couples. So in this case, what can she do?
That's a tough way. You can report it. You can report to the cyber crime department. You have the police. Every police department, police outpost will have some cyber cell. Report it if you think that is something which is unethical and without your consent. Then you have every right to protect your privacy. By the way, India is coming up with a privacy law. It is called PDPA, Personal Data Protection Right. Hopefully, over the next few months or maybe within a year, the government will be able to pass it in the parliament. I think it has already gone for a table in the lower house of parliament for bill being passed. So similarly, RBI is also one custodian, manages financial institutions. They are trying to protect your data as well. And therefore, there has been initiatives that has been taken. In Europe, it is very advanced. Something like GDPR, if you have heard of it. GDPR, or in US, there is something called Californian Act, or in Singapore, we call the PDPA in Singapore as well. So there are going to be penalties if your data is being shared or used by somebody else.
Thank you so much, sir, for answering all the questions so nicely. And so now with this, I'll be closing the session. And thank you, sir, again for this very engaging session. I will now request Dr. Alta Maga, Senior Faculty, Department of Mathematics, to kindly give the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Shruti. On behalf of IQAC, Principal and Department of Mathematics of Jesus and Mary College, it is with a sense of immense gratitude that I thank today's speaker, Mr. Anup Kanti Deb, for giving a very elaborate and lucid presentation on an extremely relevant and sensitive topic of cyber safety that affects us in almost all our day-to-day activities. Especially in the backdrop of COVID-19 pandemic, when we have become so vulnerable where our safety is concerned, we cannot afford to take anything for granted. Mr. Deb has very extensively covered the various security threats that we face in the usage of internet and IT devices, and also the preventive measures we need to take for our safety. Apart from being highly enlightened on the given subject, what I have found particularly significant in today's talk is how cybersecurity opens up a relatively unexplored area for women to usefully employ their academic and research skills. This in itself is a great takeaway from today's discussion and will probably encourage our students, especially mathematics students, to consider cybersecurity as a possible area of employment. So I thank you once again, Mr. Deb, on behalf of our faculty and students who I am sure would have benefited a great deal from a very interesting and informative presentation made by you. Let me take this opportunity to thank Dr. Indrakshi Datta, teacher in charge of Mathematics Department, who has worked tirelessly right from arranging the speaker to coordinating with the organizing committee and publicizing to make this meaningful webinar a reality. Also, thanks are due to Dr. Shruti Tohan for creating the poster of the webinar and for very effectively moderating a very interactive question answer session. Before I begin thanking the webinar committee, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to our principal, Dr. Sister Rosalie, for always being a rock solid support and motivation behind these webinars. The webinar team, headed by Dr. Amita Motwani from Commerce Department, deserves a special word of thanks for doing a commendable job of hosting such webinars on virtual platforms. All the technical aspects, ranging from registrations to hosting on Google Meet and live streaming on YouTube and preparing the reports for posting on college website, are efficiently managed by our young faculty, Dr. Naveen Thomas from Economics Department, Ms. Vrinda Moda from Commerce Department, Ms. Megha Jacob from Economics Department, Dr. Shikha Singh from Mathematics Department, Ms. Ishita Singh from English Department, and Mr. Gaurav Verma, IT Consultant from Administration. Last but not least, immense thanks to all of you for being a wonderful and participative audience. You may visit the website of our college to view all the past and future webinars organized by the college. Thank you once again for joining us. Wish you all a very pleasant day. Thank you.